Courtney, when if someone out there, a freelancer, is watching this and wants to pitch to Vice a project or a story, and it's in a country that is difficult and risky for journalists to operate, what's a sort of a list of that you're looking for, and what are things that you're not looking for that would make this work or make it not work?
That's a really great question. One of my very favorite things about working at Vice is that Vice takes security and safety very, very seriously and has a lot of resources around that. So I, as a commissioning supervising producer, I don't take pieces on spec from risky areas, particularly from journalists that I haven't worked with before. And that is because we have a really wonderful security infrastructure where we do like risk assessment, we have insurance to make sure that we're taking care of people in the field. And it's, essentially the same for freelancers as it is for staff. So what I'm looking for when, I'm sorry if you guys can hear my cat. My cat is outside meowing. So when I'm working with journalists in any country with sort of increased risk, I'm definitely looking for people to reach out to me at the beginning with like a really clear pitch. I actually made a little list of things this morning that I look for. As I said, Vice is very focused on visuals and like stories with a lot of opportunity for B-roll. We are also very focused on storytelling as well as story. So like characters, ensuring that, I like to think like with every piece, like what kind of like journey am I on here? We also, the other things I'm looking for is like detail on scale and scope of the story and the implications of it. I always want to know if it's gotten like what other kind of media coverage the story has gotten, if any. That's not at all like a deal breaker, but it's something that's very useful for us to know up front so we can think about how we're differentiating from what's already out there. And Vice, has areas of coverage that we're very focused on, gun control, global conflict, et cetera. So just like being like aware of the Vice brand and like thinking about who we are and what we do when people are pitching us. All of that is really helpful for anyone pitching, and particularly for high risk countries or just like areas or stories generally. I'm definitely looking to hear from people at the very beginning with their idea and, looking for indicators that the person I'm working with is also very aware of the risk and is going to be mitigating risk everywhere possible, even if it's a riskier story, if that makes sense. Like that's something I'm constantly looking for, is how do we make this as safe as possible? And that like we are considering every risk that we are taking and being as careful as we can.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Milena, what about in the post-production phase for you? How much awareness and how much work you do with, did you do with Gelareh's team or with other teams that you work for in terms of, making sure that or being aware of some of the risks, or does that come into play? Do you think about in terms of what they may have said or B-roll that you might have and what might put people in trouble if there's something in a place like Iran, or like how much of that concern is it, or is it not a concern when you're producing something?
I think it's definitely generally like always a concern, but it's one of those things where since there had already been extensive conversations between Courtney and Gelareh's team, prior to filming anything, all those concerns were already addressed and kind of mitigated by the time the footage was already shot and I started working on it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Gelareh, working in Iran as a journalist is really difficult. As a dual national journalist, it brings a whole level of other risks. We have colleagues who've been in prison, like Jason Rezaian. We've you're kind of always at the mercy of the government's foreign press office of whether what permit works or what you can do and what can't do. Can you speak a little bit about how you navigate this space and especially what it involves in terms of getting permission and permits? Do you have to get a permit for Vice working for Vice News or for each project, or and how much are they aware that what you're doing or what you're not doing?
For permitting here, yeah, there is a process that every either Iranian or foreign national they would have to go through, and that is going through the Cultural Council and applying for accreditation for that specific news organization. So when there is a story that needs to be done, you would get the specific permit and card for that organization. Like you can't get a press card and then just report for everyone. That's not permitted. So we had been, so I had introduced myself to the Cultural Council in 2014 when Vice first came to Iran. Mm-hmm. So they knew me connected to Vice since then, and they followed my work. I've also worked in Iran since for 12 years, and I'd worked in the film industry. So they had known my background, they had known my work here. I have mainly lived in Iran during my time working from Iran. So I felt like at least, my background and what I'm doing is quite clear. And with the work I'm also doing for different organizations. Specifically for Vice, what we do is we apply, you have to tell them the story that you're going for. So you're getting the accreditation for that specific story and for that specific organization. They will either say yes or they will say no. Once they say yes, you work with a company. There's a company here that are specific media companies that help you with the permits. Like for example, if you want an interview, they can help you set that up. They would vouch for you, because one thing that happens with Iran and it makes it very tricky is people can complain about you. They can say, I don't know who this person is calling me, asking me questions, they want to film me, and then they can complain. And so if they complain about you, someone needs to vouch that if you're filming something or you're asking a question, it's directed to a specific organization. So we make sure before we do anything, everything's said, everyone knows, meaning the Cultural Council knows, the media agency knows that this is a story that we're going to be tackling. So if they get a story of a complaint and it's within that subject matter, they know that, okay, well, it's normal that this is happening. And then in some cases, they will try to help us, solve the problem. For example, doing a sensitive story like Zurkhane, obviously there was a lot of people that didn't want us to do the story, or they wouldn't want to come on camera. But because we had the permitting done, then we, in a way, I guess not to say that we can't be stopped, but we sort of had the green light to, okay, go, but, just make sure you do it properly. How much do they know about what I do? I mean, I just presume they know everything. So I work in a way in Iran that I'm an open book, and everywhere I go, every person I speak to, it's out in the open. There's nothing hidden.
Thank you very much.